and subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
Now, as we know from December, or if you don't know, you soon will now, that in December, the WBC are calling for the mandatory situation for Deontay Wilder. Okay, but before then, it's going to be Wilder versus Fury, okay? We fully expect Wilder to win this one, and it is unfortunate, as much as I would love Tyson Fury to win this one, I think it's too soon. That's just my opinion. Ultimately, on the night, we'll find out, won't we? But let's just presume, okay, that Wilder is going to win this fight. After then, he must fight his mandatory. He cannot fight anybody else except the mandatory or the unified champion in Anthony Joshua, or potentially Povetkin, who knows, okay, but let's hope it's Joshua, right? So he must face Dominic Breazeale after he fights Tyson Fury. So Dominic Breazeale has said that he's open and he's willing to fight Dillian Whyte next. For me, that is a flag that Eddie Hearn should be jumping all over. Why? Because, you know, they've been trying to get Dillian Whyte versus Deontay Wilder for quite some time. Deontay Wilder always seems like he doesn't want anything to do with Dillian Whyte. Is he afraid? Who knows what it is? But he doesn't want to fight Dillian Whyte for whatever reason it may be. And this is an ideal opportunity for Eddie Hearn to maneuver Dillian Whyte into the mandatory, into a position where Wilder cannot avoid him. So therefore, after Wilder defeats Tyson Fury, if that happens, then he must face Dillian Whyte. The only way he can't face Dillian Whyte is to fight Joshua. But if Dillian Whyte is the mandatory and it's been called next, do you really think that Eddie Hearn would allow Wilder versus Joshua? Yes, it's for undisputed, but no, of course he won't. He will take the risk that Dillian Whyte is going to beat Wilder, and then Dillian Whyte versus Joshua for undisputed. Two Brits, two of his guys for undisputed. Perfect scenario for him, right? Perfect scenario for Joshua, perfect scenario for Dillian Whyte. But every time Eddie Hearn speaks lately about Dillian Whyte, he can't mention anyone else other than DERECK Chisora. DERECK Chisora is a guy who, let's be honest, against Carlos Takam, and I was so proud of him. I really was. I was chuffed to bits for him that he won against Carlos Takam. He turned up, but let's be honest, up to that one punch, Chisora was getting battered, absolutely destroyed. And if Dillian Whyte versus DERECK Chisora happens, Dillian Whyte is going to walk through him. He's going to do to him what he should have done the first time around. He didn't do it first time around. He let emotions get in the way, and he was trying to get him out of there too early. He didn't pace himself, and of course he was burnt out before he even went into that fight, because he had so many fights before then within a short period of time. Now, for me, I don't like to see fighters go back and rematch unless absolutely necessary. That's just my opinion. So I don't understand why Eddie Hearn keeps talking about DERECK Chisora. Well, I do, and we are going to get into that, and this is going to actually be a little bit of a criticism towards Eddie Hearn. Now, I know Eddie Hearn, he prefers criticism to positivity. That's the impression that I get with Eddie Hearn. So Eddie Hearn, listen up, mate. Now, yesterday in Newcastle, I was stood next to Eddie Hearn, and one guy said, he asked him, what about Dillian Whyte next? What's happening? And Eddie Hearn said, well, we'll find out soon enough. There'll be an announcement soon enough. And then I just chirped in and said, well, what about Breazeale? And the reason that I said Breazeale is because if Dillian Whyte Breazeale happens, Dillian Whyte wins, Wilder is in a position where he must face Dillian Whyte next. But he just turned around to me and said, Chisora. Now that, for me, annoyed me a little bit. Because why would you want to waste the opportunity? We have a golden opportunity here to get Dillian Whyte into a position to fight for the WBC title. And then ultimately for undisputed against Joshua. Okay? Because Wilder, they're going to have to rely on Wilder to do a voluntary against Dillian Whyte or a voluntary against Joshua. Wilder don't like voluntaries too much. He doesn't do it. Okay? Unless he can cherry pick somebody that's lower. And that's what Wilder does. But you know what? I kind of understand what it is that Eddie Hearn is trying to do and say. Hey, listen, maybe I'm wrong. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But for me, I feel that I'm right. That Eddie Hearn is desperate for Dillian Whyte versus Chisora and almost brushing away the WBC mandatory position, just brushing it away. It's not important to him. He personally doesn't want that. He wants Chisora and White. Listen, it's a big fight. But when I did that poll a little while ago, 73% of you guys voted Dominic Brazil. Why? Because we know what's at stake. We know what could happen next, after then. Because we don't always look at just what's the next fight. We always look at what happens after that next fight. That's pretty much why people said Dominic Brazil over Chisora. Chisora, he only has 7%. Now, I know that Eddie Hearn, he does get like a lot of people saying, Chisora this and Chisora that, because they don't know Dominic Brazil other than the guy who got knocked out against Joshua. They don't know what's at stake. If they knew what's at stake, they'd be saying Dominic Brazil, Dominic Brazil. Now, for Eddie Hearn to be doing this, it's simple, okay? Joshua versus Povetkin next, April 13th. They must put 100,000 people, or at least close to it, at Wembley Stadium. Dillian White could potentially do that. Deontay Wilder could potentially do that. So therefore, he needs both of these guys free on that date, with an ideal opportunity for Wilder, of course, is for undisputed. But if Wilder can't do it, Dillian White is the backup. For me, Dillian White shouldn't be anybody's backup. But, you know what? It's a title opportunity, so fair enough. But if he was to have, say, Dominic Brazil versus Wilder next, Dominic Brazil versus Dillian White next, and Dillian White wins, the WBC call the mandatory, and then April time, whenever it may be, Deontay Wilder versus Dillian White. Who does Joshua fight in front of 100,000? Who? Jarrell Miller? Jarrell Miller is unwilling to leave New York. But even if he does, would he fill out 100,000? Would he? Maybe. I don't know. Because it is Joshua, of course it is. But it's not a super fight, in all honesty. It's not. So, Eddie Hearn needs White and Wilder to be free around that date. If he can't get Wilder, then he's going to fight Dillian. For me, it's a business move. This isn't a move what's best for Dillian White. He's looking at what's best for Joshua. So Joshua has a credible opponent in April. I understand it. But for me, I don't think that Dillian White should be waiting around. For me, I think that Dillian should be saying, look, I've already fought Chisora. Why would I need to fight him again? Okay, I'll knock him out and I'll get paid well. That's great. But as I said, I'm happy for Dillian to fight Chisora. I'm not hating on the fight, okay? I want to make that perfectly clear. I'm not hating on that fight. Dillian can fight anybody right now, and I'm happy with it. But while there's an opportunity to get him into the WBC mandatory situation to force Wilder to fight Dillian White next, you should take it. Why would you want to ruin Joshua versus White, potentially anyway, for undisputed? Why would you want to risk that? Just because Eddie Hearn wants Joshua to have a credible opponent? I'm not saying that is it, but I'm saying from an outside looking in, that's the impression that I get. He wants Joshua to have a credible opponent April 13th at Wembley Stadium. If they can't get Wilder, then Dillian is the backup. But if Wilder versus White happens, and it would happen around that time, because WBC have enforced it, then it means that if Dillian White was to defeat Wilder, when are we going to get Joshua versus White? When is Wembley going to be free? Maybe that's what he's thinking. Because they've got April 13th, but if they're going to be looking at, September after then, is Wembley free around that time? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe that's why. Maybe they have tried to get Dominic Brazil. I don't know. Personally, I get the impression that Eddie Hearn doesn't want Dominic Brazil. He doesn't want Dillian White to be the mandatory because he doesn't want to ruin the chance of a big fight in April for Joshua. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know if I've made sense, but anyway. For me, I think that it should be Dominic Brazil and Dillian White next. And Eddie Hearn should do everything he can to make that fight. Do what he can. If necessary, if Dillian has to be the B-side in that fight, then he has to be the B-side. As far as financials go. As far as name on the poster goes. I'm sure Dillian doesn't really care about that. But the ultimate goal is beat Dominic Brazil, and then you will fight Wilder next. You will fight him next. Wilder has no choice. It ruins Joshua's April 13th date at Wembley because he doesn't have White or Wilder, and he's going to have to maybe fight, I don't know, a Miller, if Miller is willing to come over. But outside of that, who? There's a lot of good fighters out there. Otto Wallin. But is that going to be a name to fill Wembley? Probably not. Probably not. Maybe the winner of Kubrat Pulev and Hughie Fury. Maybe. I don't know. But for me, I get the impression that Eddie Hearn isn't doing anything as far as Dominic Brazil goes. He may have made an inquiry, but is he making any kind of offers? Is he trying to get that fight? Or does he really want Chisora versus White? Fact being, that's both his fighters. He's getting paid twice. And the winner could go on and fight Anthony Joshua. Eddie Hearn is manoeuvring everything around Anthony Joshua. But when it comes to Dillian Whyte, he should be moving it around what's best for Dillian Whyte. I don't know. You drop your thoughts. Click that thumbs up. Subscribe. Catch you all on the next video.